I can't believe her stupidity. Apologies that this is a long post. I really just want to offload, but grateful to anyone who sticks with me until the end. It looks like my wife is now finally realizing that decisions have consequences. The backstory is that my wife started an affair with App, a 23-year-old work colleague, back in February. I discovered it almost straight away. After a very brief attempt at reconciliation, she decided to leave me. In mid-April she moved into a new apartment, allegedly on her own, but I was pretty certain App was living there too. While all this was unfolding, my wife deployed all the usual tactics to defend her shitty behavior, like blaming me for being a terrible husband, and claiming our whole marriage has been nothing but misery. The situation was made messy by the fact we have a daughter, whose custody we share 50-50. Anyway, the signs that things were maybe less than perfect between my wife and App started to reveal themselves very early on, even before she moved out. In particular, I remember her texting me while she was on a 3-night sex vacation with App to tell me she was feeling sad and that she was thinking of coming home early. I ignored the messages, so she stayed. Then, a week after she moved out, when we had our first child handover day, my wife gave me a note saying, "I'm so sorry. I really fucked up. I didn't know what to make of this, so I ignored this too." For the next few weeks, our exchanges became cold and businesslike. This was largely because I was employing grey rock technique. I think this really annoyed her, but then, last week she texted me on the day before handover day and asked me if I wanted to do something together. I replied, no thanks. On the handover day, we met on neutral territory in the local park as we did every week. It was my turn to collect our daughter off her. I barely had to say hello before my wife broke down in tears and said she's sad, she's lonely, and she's struggling. She then said she misses me, and that she would turn back time if she could. I thought she might come to this conclusion eventually, but I thought she'd last more than 6 fucking weeks. I reminded her that she was unhappy with me, so if she's still unhappy without me then maybe the problem is her. I asked her what she was doing to improve her mental health. She said she desperately needs to get her ADHD diagnosed and medicated before she makes more reckless decisions through chasing dopamine highs. Yes, that's right, she blames ADHD for having the affair and destroying our family. The obvious elephant in the room was whether she was still seeing App. So I just asked the question outright. She told me she's spending less time with him, however she's sort of become dependent on him for certain things, like her housing. What? I said, feigning surprise, even though I suspected this all along. She confirmed my suspicions. The apartment she is living in is shared with App. I pretended like I couldn't believe the stupidity, but really nothing surprises me anymore. How could she move out of our stable marital home and enter an apartment with some 23-year-old delinquent whom she's been seeing for all of a month? And not only that, but it turns out App is only there for half the week, when my wife doesn't have our daughter, which means he only pays a quarter of the rent and bills. But because his name's on the tenancy agreement, my wife isn't entitled to any state benefits. In other words, she can't afford the rent and is eating into our family savings to cover her basic living costs. And the worst part is, she's signed a 12-month tenancy agreement, which means she's stuck in this arrangement. At this point she said she was truly sorry. She made a terrible mistake. She wishes she had listened when I tried to stop her leaving. Blah blah fucking blah. She said she'd never planned to rent with App, but she couldn't afford a place on her own, so he agreed to help out. Oh great. So he's her fucking knight in shining armor. She also said she'd do anything to get back with me. For starters, she said she'll try and get App to leave the apartment, and she'll ask the landlord to take his name off the tenancy. The problem is, I still struggle to believe a word she says. I asked her what's gone wrong with App that's causing her to feel this way. She said AP's done nothing wrong. It's just she's now realized she is still in love with me and she doesn't want to string him along. Well, of course she's not going to admit that it's all gone horribly wrong with App and that I'm just the backup plan. So I asked why she's suddenly realized she loves me again. She said something about our marriage not being all bad. I pushed her on this point further and she said she misses the things we used to do together. For example, she misses being able to have intellectual conversations. Haha, because intellect is not exactly AP's strength. Finally, I asked her if App knows she still has feelings for me. She said he does, but that he still wants to be with her anyway. At this point I was starting to think maybe they fucking deserve each other. We ended the conversation with me saying I'm not currently interested in getting back with her, and that her priority needs to be getting herself out of this absolute mess of a situation and improving her mental health. That's pretty much where the story ends, for now. Thanks for listening if you stuck with me. Luckily for me, I'm feeling pretty over her right now, so I'm not considering reconciliation. I'll admit I take some satisfaction in seeing it all fall apart for her, like I knew it would. But overall it's just so sad it's come to this, especially considering we were pretty happy together at the start of the year. I also worry that my wife's behavior is just so irrational that maybe this is all one big mental breakdown, in which case I don't really know what to do or to what extent I should support her. It's in no one's interest, and certainly not in our daughter's interest, if she does suffer a mental breakdown. And I'll admit I'm uncomfortable about the thought of her feeling forced to share an apartment, and a bed, with this imbecile purely out of desperation, because she's got nowhere else to go. Ugh, what a fucking mess. Advice on those last 2 paragraphs is certainly appreciated.
Please don't believe a word she's saying. She went with App, and then realized the grass is not greener on the other side. Now she wants you back. But she doesn't actually want you back, she wants the financial stability you provided back. She wouldn't have came back if it wasn't for her financial issues. Deep down you know this.
I hope you're divorced already or it's in the works. She is a hot mess right now. You should create space for you and your daughter's sake.
This hits the nail on the she is having mental health issues. Reach out and express your concerns regarding your conversation to her family, friends. Let her lean on them, not you. You need to look after yourself and your daughter during this. Protect your own finances. You mentioned she's eating into the family savings? Open up a separate account and remove half. Contact a lawyer. She's mentioning reconciliation because she wants her security blanket and comforts. Long term, it won't last.
She loves your money.
Thank you. I genuinely don't think she's financially motivated. She's always been terrible with money and has never really grasped it. She also has a victim mentality and almost revels in poverty. But yeah, you're almost certainly right that she's realizing grass isn't greener. It's possible she's struggling with the parenting on her own for half the week too. The divorce is in the works and I'm possibly regretting now not progressing it as quickly as I should have.
If you are really concerned about her mental health, and you are more than justified by the sounds of it, you may wish to seek full custody. It would be awful to go that route, but the mention of it might just be the thing that lights a fire under her ass to seek help and treatment. If she loves her daughter, I'm hoping she'll do it.
You are doing the right thing refusing her by her history with you. She is a serial cheater. You know of multiple affairs, this just happens to be the one she moved in with. Now that she doesn't have her comfortable home to do her cheating escapades, she is feeling down. She now lives with the guy and they are semi-offical, so that dopamine rush is gone. It's no longer fun, plus it sounds like the guy isn't very useful outside of the bedroom. So now she is stuck with a guy that she longer gets a rush from. He has no benefits with the being dull, and she is beyond her bed. Let her lie in it. If you even give her an opening, nothing will change. She has never shown any inclination of being a good wife. Move on and find the person you deserve.
Thanks. Yes, now she's confessed she lives with App, I think I could make a very strong case for full custody.
She just needs you for problems are not your problems, her the dignity of living the consequences of her actions, and don't try to support her and solve her problems, which requires you to go against your impulses and instincts.
As the saying goes, around and find out. I guess she is. Speed it up if you can.
Greater than in others, she can't afford the rent and is eating into our family savings to cover her basic living, spending your money on her love nest.
Your wife realized App isn't the long-term answer and probably won't even be the short-term. You did go back, she'd pull the same thing again, maybe with an older guy. This not worth the hassle.
She might be suffering some mental health issues, but it's not like she's incapacitated. She was aware enough to lie and gaslight you while setting up her monkey branch. She was aware enough to rewrite your relationship history to make you the villain. She was aware enough to search for apartments, sign a lease agreement, realize she couldn't afford it in her own, rope her AP into assisting her financially, all while lying to you about the circumstances around her new apartment. And don't forget your previous post about her previous infidelities. Her issues aren't mental. Health, mate. Her issues are just that she's an entitled, selfish, lying, manipulative, cheating, spoiled, woman-child who is coming to grips with her life choices. She left her fiancé for you, and then left you for AP. The only difference is you were stable, a provider, someone she could count on. AP is a 23-year-old dingus who is incapable of providing for her like you did. She doesn't want you back, mate. She just doesn't want to have to be the adult of the relationship. Being a grown-up responsible for proving for oneself and one's child is hard work. She's never had to do that before. She knows you were her best bet at having a stable life, and she's only now realizing that she it all away because she's a Don't take her back. Let her wallow in her victimhood. She did this to herself. It's not your job to save her. You already tired.
She really be asking to come back to you if her financial situation was stable? Because all I hear is her complaining about her pain whilst not caring at all about yours. In my opinion, if her situation with her new boy toy was more comfortable, you never would have gotten that remorseful sob story out of her. She's trying to manipulate you. Don't let her make you feel sorry for her. She wanted to share a bed with Can.
You better remove half of whatever is in that savings and put it in your own account so she doesn't blow it all on supporting her new life with AP.
My suggestion in this case would be to notify her family if you have MT already. Make it their problem. Let them know she mentioned having some mental issues and might be having a meltdown. She might need to go to the hospital and deal with a manic episode. I'm not excusing her behavior or her issues, or even saying you should get involved. I am pointing out it might be in your daughter's best interest if her mother is also document the problem. If she is institutionalized, it will help with custody issues. Why does that matter? Why you need to the ability to protect your daughter in the days ahead. What if she gets darker? Having to prove a case from scratch can take time and might be a custody agreement in place stat. Not a verbal one but a legal one. This will save you headaches later if she ever has questionable doing well. By the way, detachment shows a healthy self-esteem. Doesn't mean the trauma is solved, but it does help with speeding up the healing. With or without this helps.
Formal, you and I talked about this in depth I think right after she moved out. I think it's hilarious that he won't stay while your daughter is there and only pays 1/4 the bills. This shows that his only interest lies between her legs. Some knight in shining armor, eh? If she does suffer a serious mental issue, you owe it to your daughter to try for full custody. It is for your kids her that if she wants to get away from AP, have him move out and then have her apply for state assistance. If she won't do that, then obviously she doesn't hate having him around that much. She moved in with him so quickly it seemed like she was doing it to spite you, so it's not surprising that they have little in common. She has no one to help her with her daughter and a part-time partner. The fog has lifted and the life she destroyed is hideous. If you even consider I would make her stand on her own financially for a while after booting out AP. And she must get mental help. Your last 2 paragraphs show you still care, have humanity left for her. You are a good man and you were right. Edit, I just checked and it was in the comments of your post, the mistakes I made. And I predicted that AP, the 23 years old, would get tired of sharing your STBXW with your daughter and wouldn't be much help with childcare. But now he isn't even there. I agree that it looked like the fog was lifting back then, but it looks like reality has really gone. That fog.
Just to clarify the financial, we never had a joint account, but because she is terrible with money, she had very little savings of her own. Just a savings account with a few thousand. Anticipating that she'd be getting money off me eventually, I gave her some of the divorce money up front, to pay for her moving costs, obviously documenting all transactions. Well, it turns out the money I gave her is all gone, and she's eating away at her savings now. She also mentioned she's now working a lot of overtime to cover her, at least she can't squander any more of my money. Thank you. It's also a complicated one regarding her family, and told them the full story regarding her affair just before she moved. She is denying it and is lying to her family. They can see right through it, which makes them not want to help. Example, she wouldn't let her family come and visit her in her new apartment, which was obviously because they'd see she's living with. Was another occasion where she made an excuse not to see her family, but they then found pictures on AP's social media which proved she was with him. And instead of owning up to this and apologizing for the Deception, she tried to deny it was her in the picture. So my wife is becoming increasingly isolated with nobody except app to talk. However, she's really not helping herself.